Hey everyone, welcome back to Great Northwest Weaponry. This is Thomas and we are looking at an awesome weapon today. This is the Finnish Mosin M28. These were kind of the Finns' upgraded version of the Mosin after, as you may recall, us talking about the Mosin Nagant 91/24, the M24 as it's sometimes called. This was from there when the two branches of Mosin from the M24 went off. You had the 27 was Army, and the 28 was the Finnish. What are they called? Civil Guard. Civil Guard. Stupid me. But anyway, before we get too far into the history on this, we're going to go ahead and just go into the gun room and start talking some Winter War history. So as some of you guys may recall from the last video we did involving Finnish Mosins, the M91 demo and 91/24 was also talked about in there as it relates to the gun in question in that video. When Finland obtained their independence in 1917 during the Russian Revolution, they had about 190,000 Mosin Nagant M91s floating around in their country, and all of these would be used, modified, updated in some way. And in the from the 20s through 1941, they would order in another, I believe it's 174,000-ish. If I'm incorrect on that number, I'll put a correction. But about 174,000 more Mosins from multiple countries, including, you'll see some American Mosins, as well as, numerous Russian ones, and really anyone else who had them, Bulgarian Mosins, and so on. And a lot of these would become the model 1928. And as we already mentioned in the most roundabout and fumbling way imaginable, this is the Finnish Civil Guard variant, but there's also the M27, which was the Finnish Army variant. We're going to be talking about both of those today. And to talk about the M28, you kind of have to talk about the M27, because the M28 is based on the M27. And it's kind of funny, there's rivalries in all militaries, really, between branches, and the Army and the Civil Guard very much had a rivalry. And when the Civil Guard got a hold of an M27 and kind of got into what they did and took a look at what they'd done with the rifle, they went, well, we can do that better. So the M28 came to be. But starting with the M27, so the Army wanted to switch to something that was smaller and lighter than the cumbersome M91s, which the M24 and the M91 are almost synonymous with each other. They're very minute differences. It's basically just an improved trigger, as you may recall. So they wanted something smaller. I apologize, I lost my train of thought there. But the rifle was shortened from about 31.5 inches long to 27 inches long, as well as a couple of other improvements, namely the front sight was changed to about what you see here. What you see right here. Didn't realize when recording that you couldn't really see it. With the wings, that was basically to protect the front sight. If you look on an M91 or an M24, it's basically just a front sight that's just there. There's nothing really around it protecting it. So these wings are really sturdy, and they left holes in the sides so you could get in and adjust the front sight still if need be, though it was a bit difficult, and that would be remedied later on, but we'll get to that. Other primary differences would be slight changes to the rear sight. It would still be on a 91 platform, but the actual sight would be different, and they would add a little button on the side, like a little tag to for ease of adjustment. That would be on the M27. Bear in mind, we're still talking about the M27 here, not quite to the M28. And then these would all be SA marked, the M27s, as they were made by the Army for the Army. And they would all have the standard trigger job done and extensive accuracy tests. The Finns were very, very particular about their accuracy tests. I know in later rifles, namely the the 28-30 and the 39, if the rifle could not shoot within about 1.5 inch diameter consistently, and draw patterns in that 1.5 inches, and I believe it was 100 yards. I could be wrong on that, don't quote me. But if it couldn't shoot it within that small tolerance, it was not deemed accurate enough, and the barrel would be redone. That is another thing. The barrels on most of, if not all of these, are a rebarrel. They just either made their own barrels or contracted them out. In the case of the M27s, I believe it was Tikka that made virtually all of them. And then in the case of the M28s, it was mostly contracts with SIG and a few other companies. But sticking with the M27, that really is about the end of the major overhauls that are noticeable. There may be some other smaller, finer details. The nose cap actually is an important one that I hadn't got into yet. This nose cap looks similar between a 28 and a 27, but on the 27, it hinged so that you wouldn't have to take it and the bands all off to get this this handguard off. It was just basically meant for ease of taking the gun apart, but it was found to be delicate isn't really the right word. Problematic, I guess, because the rebarrels that the 27s and 28s had, the barrel is quite a bit thicker than a 91 barrel, and most of these used original 91 stocks that had just been cut. So you had to bore out the inside of the stock a little bit, and that weakened it substantially. And then when you mounted a bayonet on it, if you used the bayonet, you were prone to cracking down in here or just splintering it apart. So a lot of them you'll see about so long of a piece of metal. This is often called a popsicle stick. That's just kind of the collector's term for it, but you'll see those attached on either side. That would have either been a preemptive measure after they found out that this is a problem, or something that was done to repair an already broken stock. But that fixed the problem for the time being. But now we actually get to the M28, which is the star of today's show. So, as I'd already mentioned kind of briefly, the Civil Guard got their hands on an Army M27 and went like, oh yeah, we like this. We can do a better job at it. So the hinged nose cap was done away with. This is a solid nose cap. You don't really see popsicle sticks on M28s. I've never seen an example of one that has it, nor have I heard of one. If any of you guys know otherwise, I mean, feel free to tell me. One thing you'll see on 28s that you will not see on 27s is occasionally they'll have two holes for the sling. These are the ski trooper variant because they were largely used by ski troopers, because this made carrying the rifle on your back more comfortable and gave you more options of how to configure it. That is about the most desirable version of the 28 that you're ever going to find. This is not one of those, but this is still a sweet piece. You don't really see a lot of the M28s. They're just not all that common, really. About 35,000 were manufactured from 1928 to 1932. I don't remember the production numbers on the 27 off the top of my head, so I'll post it right over here as usual. And those were made until about 1935, from 1927 till about 1935. In mass, anyway. They did actually keep on making, like, there was like a, I don't remember the specific circumstance, but later, like in like 40 or 41, a handful were made. But the bulk of them were made up to 1935. And in the case of the M28, though, this would be ended, like I said, in right about 1930, because then you'd have the 2830 coming around, of which was the new improved thing, of which we'll talk about more when we do our demo on my personal Mosin M39. I keep on just having these stupid moments where I can't quite remember where my train of thought is going, and I'm trying to avoid editing the video an enormous amount by making all these mistakes, but you know, it is what it is. I'm gonna say it's we're sitting here very late in the night now on a Saturday, and I'm tired. But anyway, the differences with the M28 don't end at the nose cap. The rear sight has a slight difference, and we'll actually look closer at that when we go to the tabletop view, because it's almost petty, honestly, that they changed this. And a lot of people probably wouldn't even notice this difference unless you are a real stickler for these things. It's kind of funny, actually. I kind of want to talk about that now. So let's go ahead and go to the tabletop view and take a look at some markings and how to remove the bolt and this little rear sight shenanigans. Now, the M28 is generally pretty light on markings. So the biggest ones that you're gonna need to worry about is this SY, and you can see a couple of these. It's like a little S with little hash marks to either side of it. There's a couple of them on here, actually. These are all Civil Guard markings. We've mentioned this in the previous video. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce what the Civil Guard was actually called by the Finns, but it looks something like that. So yeah, absorb that and try and figure out how to pronounce it if you dare. But there is one marking on this particular rifle that I don't actually know what it is. It looks like an SYL. Now, I don't know if this is a marking that was put there by the Finns. Maybe someone in the comments can help me. Always appreciated. I don't know all there is to know about all these. There's plenty for anyone to learn on any of this. I just give you the best that I got. Before we go to the bolt, I'm going to show you the funniness that I was talking about with this here rear sight. So you see these screws and how they're on the top. That is only going to be a feature on the Civil Guard variant, the 28. On the Army variant, the screws would be here on the face of it. They would have basically the same plate instead of the little piece that kind of sat on top like what you'd see on a 91. But yeah, like I said, it's almost petty. It's like, I don't know why they bothered to change that rather than just using the same rear sight. But one thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about the M27 that is a feature exclusively seen on M27s dated 1933 or earlier. This feature was abandoned in 33. On the bolt, right in here somewhere, there would be little ribs, little like guide ribs, and there'd be a cut inside the bolt carrier, or inside the receiver where the bolt travels. And the idea of this was to strengthen the final bit of travel of the bolt. This was found, like I said, in 1933 to be kind of a redundancy that wasn't needed. The bolt was sturdy enough already. So they abandoned this. But also because of this, M27 bolts will not fit in any other Mosin, at least pre-1933 M27s, because of these additional ribs on either side. Like I said, I believe they're about here. But removal of the bolt, just pull the bolt the rest of the way out, pull the trigger, and there you go. Nothing special. We went over this already in the past with other Mosins. Pretty standard fare. So yeah, if you, and also we've gone over this in the past, but just for any who may not have seen that video, this piece here, this little lever, depress that, and your magazine opens. So if you have a severe jam that you can't easily clear with the bolt, you can do that and then start back over. So yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Before we go to the final shooting segment, it should be noted almost all of these went to the Army during the Continuation War, or the War of Continuation, or as a lot of us would know it, the battle in the Eastern Front, the war between Germany and Russia, when Finland joined basically to kick the Russians out of their home, because in the Winter War, the Russians had invaded. These would have served exclusively with the M28 specifically would have originally served specifically with the Civil Guard, but then almost all of them were acquired by the Army. This one, however, to the best of what I can tell, was not. There's not an SA stamp to be seen anywhere on the barrel shank or the receiver, which typically it would be somewhere on the barrel shank. So this one seems to have possibly escaped that. So kind of maybe a rare feature. Anyway, now let's go ahead and shoot the final shots to this thing and show you how to load it. Loading this is standard fare for Mosins. So we've got, put it in this pocket. 5-round stripper clip. You want to be careful that the rims are lined up properly. Again, top rim on that side of the bottom rim. I'm going to put it in the notch, hold up the top a little bit, and push in. It just seems to go a little smoother if you hold up the top bullet, then just close the bolt. Bolts on these Finnish Mosins are so much smoother than Russian bolts, I can't even hardly begin to describe. Safety, again, standard for Mosin fare. That's safe. That's fire. You may notice me do that at the beginning of the video. Now we're going to go ahead and put this 5 through. Oh man, guys. The Finns were very particular about their accuracy. They wanted accurate rifles, and they sure as heck made accurate rifles. This thing's a blast to shoot. Again, thank you to my friend Russ for letting us borrow this for the video. I only wish that this thing was mine and not his. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed the video. It's been Thomas with Great Northwest Weaponry, and I'll see you next time.